Okay, I'm just gonna rinse this off because there's gonna be some excess dirt that might have made its way on there. Now you'll see that once in a while there's gonna be a little bruise, or it might have some sort of blemish that we don't want on there. On your peeler, there's a little divot right here. The purpose of that is to actually go in, and then you can scoop out whatever thing you didn't want having on there. So I'm going to check to see if there's any other ones, or if it's just a deeper part of the outside, I can get rid of it that way. Okay, from here, I can just take my paper towel, toss it, and we're good to go. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is grating. Okay, so when we're doing this, we're going to hold it in our non-dominant hand, and we're going to lift up in between each time I go down. Okay, I don't want to push it down, otherwise because of the starch content that's in here, it's just going to turn into this mash of sludge up top. That's no good. Okay, when I'm doing this, I'm also keeping my fingers away from this. Everything that we do today, it is to prevent you from losing skin, losing organs, losing any blood onto you. I get the big eye. So everything I'm doing today, I really want you to absorb because you'll use it in this class, you're going to use it for the rest of your life. Okay? Even when I was peeling during the last class, there's the one thing I didn't talk about in terms of making sure you keep your fingers, and one kid nicked himself a bit. So we're not trying to peel our fingers, we're trying to just peel the potatoes. Keep your fingers out of the way, and then when you're grating, also make sure you're keeping your fingers off of this. The same procedure would work if you were working with a mandolin. Does anyone know what a mandolin is? Have you ever seen like those, like the machines that, not machines, but equipment that you slice and it'll make slices on it, whether it be potato, zucchini, other things? Do we know what I'm talking about? Okay. Well, when we're using that, one of my neighbors actually, she's been cooking for years and sliced off her fingers then too, okay? So we're going to keep our fingers out of the way. Once you get down to a little nub, you can just turn it and keep grating, or you can just save it for later because we are going to be chopping. Okay, you can just cap this off, and then when you wash this, make sure that you are washing it so that you're going with the groove rather than against it, so you're not getting your hand that way either. Okay, the next step we're going to do is actually going to be slicing, and we are going to need our knives for this. Okay, sharp knives are going to be way less damaging than dull ones. So what I want you to do when you get your knives, your hands are washed, you're actually going to slide your thumb across it. We're not jabbing it in, we're not trying to cut ourselves, but you'll be able to tell if there is actually a sharp edge to it. So what I like to do is, before I start cooking, just make sure we have that really nice sharp edge. And you may see chefs, when they have their knife steel, they may do it in the air. For sake of safety in here, especially as we're learning this process, I want you to get a wet towel and you're just going to place it on here. This is going to prevent it from moving or sliding on me too much. Okay, so I'm going to hold this in my non-dominant hand, and then the proper procedure to hold my knife is going to be a thumb on one side and my index finger on the other. That way I have complete control over my knife. If I'm going to be holding it like this, what's going to happen is my muscles through my finger are actually going to start hurting after a while because there's a lot of tension going on through there. So this is going to be the safest way, and it's also going to be the most productive way for you to hold your knife. I don't want to see any of this back here. I don't want to see floppy hands. I just want to have nice firm control over this. So non-dominant hand holds the knife steel. Dominant hand is going to go down at just a slight angle, starting at the top and then working our way down. We're going to do that about 3 times on each side. Okay, then I'm going to run my thumb across it, and I can feel that I have a nice sharp edge. So the next thing I'm going to do is just take that wet towel and we get the metal shavings off. If I would be doing that on here and where I'm preparing food, where are those metal shavings going to go into? The food. Okay, we don't want to do that. So do it over another towel, and then we can just get rid of this. Okay, now we're going to be working with knives and cutting boards which means that I want to make sure that this does not slip and slide out on me at all. Okay, now some cutting boards are going to have these grips on there to help prevent it from sliding very much. But regardless of what cutting board you have, I still want you to make a habit of putting wet paper towel underneath it. Okay, this is going to provide a seal that will prevent our cutting board from moving around on us. Okay, so I have a sharp knife, I have a wet paper towel underneath my cutting board, and now I can actually start cutting my potato. So first of all, I want to get rid of my grated potato. I can either put this into another bowl or just stick it over here in the counter. In your kitchens, you have a bench scraper. This is going to be found in number 9 in all of your kitchens. This is an awesome tool for you to move the product around so that you can clear off space. You can also use this to scoop it and stick it into a bowl. If you don't have a bench scraper at home, number one, they're super cheap, so you can get them for like 50 cents. But if you don't have one at home, what you can use is the back of your knife to push things over. Now, if you would do that same thing with your knife going across the cutting board, you're going to hear this awful sound, and you're also going to be dulling your knife. Nothing is going to dull your knife faster than scraping the blade across the cutting board. So I never want to hear that noise. I just want you to use the back of it and scrape it, or even better yet, you can use your bench scraper. Round things do what? They move, they roll, okay? We've learned that in elementary school. So what we're trying to do is give ourselves a flat surface so that this isn't moving around on us as we're working. To do that, I'm just going to cut off a very thin slice at one of the sides. So I know how to hold my hand with the knife that actually has it. So the thumb and index finger are going to be around my blade. For my other hand, we're going to do something that's called a bear paw. Okay, I don't care if you call it bear paw, bear claw, you just remember bear, that's all I really care about, but we're trying to protect our fingers. So we're going to have our thumb, and we're going to tuck our thumb underneath our fingertips, and then we use our fingertips to kind of just plant this down, okay? From here, this is going to seem really awkward if you're not used to this, but this is the safest way to hold your product, and it's going to be the way that any restaurant is going to want you to use knives as well. So we have the thumb tucked under. We're going to hold it with our fingertips so this isn't going anywhere. And then when I'm actually making my slice, I'm going to keep my knife tip down, and I just make a rocking motion down. I don't want to see this going on. All right, we're not trying to prove anything here. We just want to have a nice slice so that this is going to give us a straight edge, so we have a flat surface to work on. Okay, so I'm bear pawing. I can't emphasize this enough because I've had students who do this, which is often how people cut at home before they know any better. When they have their fingers out like this, if I bring my knife down and if I nick the top, you're going to nick the top of your fingers. Okay, that has happened. I've also had students who are like, oh, I have my fingers tucked under, but then they had their thumbs sticking out. How do you think that ended? Bloody, okay, it ended bloody. So let's just not go down that road. So we are going to tuck our thumb under, tuck our fingers under, and then try to get close to the knife. If I'm back here, I also don't have very much control over my product, whereas if I'm up here, I have my fingers protected, my potato isn't gonna go anywhere, and then I'm gonna have my potato, I'm gonna just go over a little bit, I'm gonna make a slice down. Then I'm gonna go over and make another slice. We're trying to have as consistent of cuts across the board so that they cook evenly. Now to get this off, because this is fairly starchy, you could either go from the top and use your hand, or even more safely, you can use your bench scraper to scrape it off. So if these are different thicknesses, which they are, these are going to cook differently. So we try to be consistent all the way through. So in this case, this was about, I would say maybe a 1/4 inch thick. I'm going to try to do that for my next one and go down. Flop it over. So what you guys are going to be doing is step 1, hair back. Step 2, get in the kitchens, do what? Wash your hands. Then what's your next step? Wash the countertops. Then you can come over. I will have sets of 3 potatoes out for you. I would like you to grab those 3, wash them up, peel them. Where are we peeling them? Over the cutting board, using a paper towel underneath it to catch it. Even if you're at home and if you have a garbage disposal, if you would put that in the sink, what's going to happen is the starchiness and the thin bit of potato peel can actually stick to the sides. It can start clogging your drains that way too. So we're going to peel them. I want you to grate either 1 potato or a third of each potato. For all of the tasks that you're doing today, I don't want one person doing this and another person working on cleanup. I want all of you to get in here so you get as comfortable with all of our sharps as possible. So you're going to grate a third or 1 potato, and then I want you to work on slicing the next one. So before you make your slices like this, what's your first slice you make? Yes, the one on the side so that you can have a flat edge. So I will be coming around, I'll be checking knife grips, I'll be checking, make sure you have paper towel underneath your cutting boards, and then in a little bit I'm going to show you our next one, which is going to be dicing. Questions? All right, so go ahead, get your hair back into your kitchens. I'll get the potatoes ready for you. Okay, so knives down during this process. Knives down, graters down, eyes up front. Okay, first of all, you'll see that my potatoes are starting to turn brown. Can I still eat these? Yeah. Yes, you can. All that's happening is the potato is reacting with the air, okay? And it's just causing a reaction to cause them to brown. It's called enzymatic browning. We'll explore that more when we're in our apple unit, because it happens with a number of fruits and vegetables, but potatoes and apples are probably the most common ones that we use that it happens to. So totally fine, you don't have to get scared. We're gonna be cooking them up in just a bit. Okay, our next step is going to be dicing. So we are using the same technique as we did for our slicing, but this time we're just gonna make it thicker. Dicing can be small dice, it can be medium dice and large dice, and really just the dimensions that's different. So small dice is 1/4 inch, for medium dice it's 1/2 inch, and large is 3/4 of an inch. We're not going to get out the rulers in this class. Basically what we're trying to do is make perfect cubes. So as long as you are using the same thickness for each one, that's all I'm really caring about. Okay, so still, this is just a different, or I'm using the same potato, but if you're using a different potato, make sure you slice off the side of it just so that you can have a flat surface. We're still using this. What's this called? Yes. Okay, and we're still using that same technique where our thumb and index finger are wrapping around our knife. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to go over about 1/4 inch straight down. Okay, now I can either flick this off or I could use my bench scraper. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go over 1/4 inch and I'm going to go down. Okay, so you would do that for the rest of your potato. Now, if we were going for perfect dices, so we're talking really like you're putting a lot of thought and love into it, we could slice these so that they have perfect edges. If I was just going to be making a soup for my family, I'm not necessarily going to do that, but I do want to get close. So all I'm going to do, and we'll start off with one, is I'm going to go over whatever thickness I was cutting my original slices. So in this case, about it's probably close to 3/8 of an inch, but that doesn't really make much of a difference as long as I'm consistent. I'm going to go over it again. So I'm just making strips. Now, if there's going to be a potato that's going to be smaller like this, once again, we're going to be throwing this all into hash browns in a bit, so that's okay. But this will cook faster than my pieces that are thicker. So just be mindful of that as you're making products. Okay, so I have my strips like this. I'm going to actually keep them still together, and I'm just going to turn them. So it's going to be basically making a checkerboard. So I'll line this up with the edge of my knife so that I have a flat surface. And then I'm going to go over that same distance. So in the end, I have pieces, where are we? There we are. We're going to have pieces that look like little Rubik's Cubes. Now, if I was working in a restaurant, no, I would not be taking slices of potato and just doing those individually. Instead, what I could do is I could layer these up Okay, I'm just using some from before. I would layer those up. I would go over, and then I could lay them flat. You just don't want to get it so that you have so much that it becomes difficult to work with. For the sake of today, I would recommend just either doing single layers or double layers, but I wouldn't go higher than that. But this would give us a little bit more to work with and be a little bit more efficient than if we would be doing the single layers. Okay, so that is going to be dicing. Our last two things that I'm going to show you are chopping and mincing. Chopping means to cut them up into irregular size pieces. Try to get them comparable, but there's going to be some variance in it. What does mincing mean? Yeah, really small, so the smallest possible pieces. So in the end, you're going to have this pile of various potatoes. Okay, what I want you to do is you can just use your bench scraper or the back of your knife to bring it into a pile. Now, can I bear paw this? There's not a whole lot to bear paw because it's all these little pieces. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to control our knife in a little bit of a different way. Our dominant hand is still going to have our thumb and our index finger. We're still going to keep the knife tip away from us. I never want to see it go sideways, and I definitely never want to see it go here, because if Mr. Reisler comes over and he knocks my arm, where's the knife?
In your stomach.
Yeah, and I don't want that. Okay, and I want you to keep your intestines too. So we're going to scoot it over. So this one holds thumb and index finger, but this time I am going to be holding the tip of my knife using the tips of my finger and my thumb. Okay, so this is going to have complete control. The tip of my knife is mainly going to be staying at 12 o'clock. Okay, it might have a little bit of variance, but for the most part it's going to be at 12 o'clock. And we're just going to use a chopping rock and chop motion. Okay, so I may move on you. That's okay. You can either use your bench scraper or you can use the back of your knife. You can use my bench scraper to scrape off the starchy potato that's sticking to it, and then I can just go back in. So that is chopping. If I was going to be mincing, I'm just going to get rid of some of these bigger guys here. Mincing is going to be a much smaller motion. Mincing is just going to be doing the same chopping technique, but you're barely moving over. You're just making tiny, tiny movements and going back and forth. So in the end, you have the smallest possible pieces that you can. Okay, so that would be something, sometimes it will call for minced onion, it could be minced garlic. So those are some of the mincing. You don't have to mince your potatoes today. Rather, you can just chop them up and try to make them comparable sizes. I realize that the grating is quite small, but we're trying to just get somewhat similar so that as it cooks, it's going to cook relatively evenly.